I'm Randall Davidson. I'm the retired from UW Oshkosh, where Josh went, Andy went, and Wayne went. And so I retired from that, where I was the general manager of WRST, which was a full power FM, and we were a halftime affiliate of Wisconsin Public Radio. But also, I was involved starting about 2016 with WMUU LP here in Madison at 102.9, and our tower is on top of the Capitol Lakes retirement community, right about 3 blocks off the square here. Our new thing is we run airtime for automation, and we carry Global Community Radio, which is a 24-hour. It's actually 3 channels that they run 24 hours a day of legal programming. Channel 1 is all news and public affairs. Channel 2 is all varieties of music, all kinds of music. It's all legal for broadcast. And then Channel 3 is the cultural channel, which is jazz and classical primarily. We run Channel 1 for most of it's on right now actually, from midnight to noon. And then we're local with our pre-recorded programming, mostly speeches and things like that in the afternoon. We go to their Channel 3 at night for jazz, and then we go back to Channel 1. So we're kind of cutting in and out of that. There is no studio for our station. We have all of our stuff is recorded off-site and imported. The station is programmed. The operations director got trapped in Scotland during COVID, and she's there still. And she's in northeastern Scotland, and so we send her audio from here, and she puts it into airtime, and then it gets transferred back to the transmitter here. I'm happy just to be in the 20th century. I mean, this is amazing to me. The one really new thing we've stumbled on is something. I was on the way up to Wausau a few weeks ago and heard WAUP and heard this really slick weather thing and called up there. I said, because they're usually like $20,000 a year to get someone to do custom weather for you. It's how many lines of code?
It's 2 small scripts.
Yes, two small computer scripts that go to the National Weather Service site, grab the text, converts it to speech, and then makes it into a WAV file that you can access. I got it working. I haven't put it in the automation into airtime yet, but it is slick as anything. You can pick your voice, you can pick your presentation. I can have an Australian guy yell the weather at you. Yeah. This is excellent. So we're working on that right now, and
different voice each day of the week.
I can have we're going to actually day part it. Once we get going, we have different voices at different times of day. We're going to do that, and so we're looking forward to that. But that's the kind of thing I think this kind of enterprise, we all help each other. And when I was working at WRST, we stole a lot of ideas for WMUU from them. We carry feature story news, and we used Radio Spider to grab it, and we put it in station playlist. Originally, now we're using Enco. But all these ideas kind of coming out. You're using feature story news, right, at OCT? Right. 5-minute top of the hour newscast, $15 a month. You can't beat that. I mean, I listened to it on the way down here. It's like they have a reporter reporting from Kyiv. This is excellent, So, and that's on my programs list, which is a thing I did years ago to help stations like this get into their get national programming a lot of times for free. So that's what it's all about. So that's my my part of the world. Back to you.
Wayne.
Oh, Wayne, yeah, introduce yourself.
We're all sharing
Who we are.
Something about our programming or tech equipment that's recent and exciting.
I'm Wayne. I work at Wapaka Radio, FM 96.3 with Josh. Went back to school in 2015. I originally graduated radio, TV, film in 92, was out of the business, went back to school. He was one of my professors, the main radio guy, and now I'm on the air 9 till noon, Monday through Friday, and we have a talk show called Good News Wapaka that airs the first and third Wednesdays of each month, and it's all live, like six guests, 5-minute, 10-minute slots, and we talk about local events and what's going on.
Right. Cool. I'll formally kind of introduce Randall. I already kind of introduced himself. He's going to speak about underwriting, non-commercial underwriting, how we can legally give businesses mentions on non-commercial stations, which is a tricky thing. But Randall kind of mentioned he's involved with one radio station here in Madison, WMUU. Prior to that, UW Oshkosh, and then I think close to 2 decades at Wisconsin Public Radio.
2 years at Wisconsin Public Radio downtown here, yeah.
Where he also wrote a book about the history of WHA in Madison, the first station in the nation. And if you haven't seen that really good book, and he kind of started at WRST, like a number of us in the room too prior to that. So lots of non-commercial background. So
Well, thank you.
expert
Yeah,
on this.
I was approached to talk about underwriting because it's such a bugaboo for everybody. Everyone wants the money, but the rules are so crazy that it's really hard to do it without running afoul of the law. So I have this sheet here that I handed out. This is kind of our FAQ sheet that we use at WRST to kind of explain to potential donors what they can and can't say. It's not advertising. You should make a big wall between those two things. I actually asked the people here at the convention to not call them spots, because that starts to conflate the notion that it's an advertising thing. It really, what it is, it's a statement thanking a company or organization for giving the station money. That's what it boils down to. Now, you can say a few things more. You can't give ads for them. By being non-commercial, the FCC said you can't do ads. They do protect us in exchange for not doing ads. They protect us from stations, public commercial stations trying to buy us and so forth. But we are allowed to give these short statements of financial support. And non-commercial listeners really like that. I did a survey when I was in grad school here in Madison. I did a thing for WORT, the big community station here in town, surveying their donors. And we were testing a bunch of different statements. I said, "Do you like the term non-commercial?" One was the words we used to see how people liked it. And people said, "Well, that doesn't apply to WRT because they have ads." Because people were misinterpreting the underwriter statements as ads. So that's one thing. You can say quite a lot. You can say the name of the company. You can say where they are. You can say contact information, phone number, or the URL of the website, and a description of the goods or services that they're offered, that are being offered by this firm or organization. Be happy to work with people about crafting the language. They're going to want to say more than you're going to want to get away with. But you're going to want to kind of feel in their corner because you really want the money. You got to be comfortable enough with leaving money on the table. I've turned down lots of underwriters who want to say too much, and that's something to watch out for. There's a long list of things you can't say. Comparatives or qualitatives. And you can't say things about expertise of employees like friendly staff and things like that. Anything that sounds really cheery like that, you can't say. You can't say anything about price. The only exception where you can talk a little bit about price is if you have a bank. You can talk about mortgage rates and things like that. They'll let that go. Now offering, 2.9% on CDs or something, that you can kind of get away with, but you can't say atmospheric things like fun family environment. Here's the big one. You can't say do any calls to action. And as I'll say a little bit later, you probably should have your underwriter statements pre-recorded for your on-air staff. If you give them a card to read and it says, for information, 608-233-8522, they're going to see that card and their brain is going to put the word call in front of that number. And suddenly it's an illegal statement. So get your underwriter statements pre-recorded to avoid that kind of thing. Or come on down. Or click on for websites. That's also a call to action. Hyperbole, a unique eatery, things like that. Yeah.
Can you say for information you can call?
No, just say for information and the number. Why chance it? And that's a problem. You can't give inducements or incentives, gift for shoppers or enter our contest. You can enter our contest at 123 North Main Street. That's telling them to come there and you have to go there to be part of it. You can't mention awards. We added personal pronouns. We offer, you will receive. First person references. Qualifiers like board certified physicians. This is a problem with car repair places. We're an authorized Volvo repair, something like that. You kind of got to shy away from that. Endorsements or testimonials. And here's a big one that comes up a lot. A lot of companies will want to be an underwriter on your statement, and they'll say, we're hiring. We want to mention we're looking for employees. The local station in Fond du Lac, a commercial station I listen to in the morning, Baker Cheese in Fond du Lac is looking for workers. If you want to work at the cheese factory outside of Fond du Lac at Baker Cheese, they're advertising all the time. And there'll be some underwriters that'll come to you and say, I'd like to say this. You have to kind of say no. Also avoid questions in the text. A lot of stations that have run afoul of FCC rules on underwriting have had questions in the text, which makes them sound like ads. But the answer is always an implicit call to action. Are you interested in a great deal? It's like, well, no. Well, then you have to do this. There's like a silent call to action in there. So stay away from that. We pre-recorded all of ours at WRST to prevent that problem of people misreading them or adding something. And on my second page, I say, do not let the funder voice their own spot, their own announcement, because they'll put a little bit of a twist on it, you know. Or another funder will come in and say, well, that guy did his one. Why can't I do mine? You know, so have someone at the station with a generic voice your underwriter statements. That's really useful. You can have non-monetary ways if someone wants to do a trade, but make sure it's something you can use for the station. For example, at WRST, we would have pizza places want to be an underwriter, and they said they provide pizza for the staff. That's not allowed. That's not helping the station. But if you have a pizza, we would get underwriters for a pizza place for the open house for the public. That is okay. So that there's a division there to watch out for, and don't take underwriting in exchange for stuff you can't use. That seems obvious. We remember the WKRP in Cincinnati where they gave away the 400 blonde stretch wigs that nobody wanted. You know, stuff like that. So, if you want it, you should offer something about tax deductibility of the donation. Most of your stations are municipally owned, probably. That you would have to talk to your controller, whoever at the municipality, and ask them how someone could get a tax donation out of this. They may have to provide a form. At UW Oshkosh, we had to go to the UW Oshkosh Foundation to get a receipt for them. So here's on the page 2 is a sample underwriting message. The last line you can actually leave off if you want. Support for WRC is provided by firm offering product located at, for information, phone number, and then the last line you can leave off if you want. If you put that on there, make sure you put a legal ID in there. There's a tip. Every time you have a promo or something, if you can squeeze a legal ID in it, a legal ID, not just the call letters, but the legal station identification, that's a great operational tip. As I said, don't allow the funder to voice their own message, or worse, have their kids do it. If you've worked in commercial radio, shoot me now. I mean, my kid can read this commercial. It'll be great. It's like, oh no, you know, I want today off. That's no good. Again, don't call them spots. That's really good. Decide what funders you will not permit, and talk to your licensee about this. There may be underwriters that you don't want. At Oshkosh, the university, since it's a university, we weren't allowed to have places that sold term papers. What a shock. You know, you also, they had a big prohibition in their publication guide for adult services. You know, strip clubs, massage parlors, adult theaters, things like that. Do you want those? Does the city want those? Probably not. Hate groups? This happened in St. Louis. The NPR station, the Klan came and wanted to be the underwriter for Morning Edition. How do you turn them down if you don't already have that in your rules? That was a huge firestorm. Candidate messages. This is you're governed by Section 399 of the Communications Act. You're not allowed to advocate for or against any candidate for public office. But campaign spots don't fall under that. At Oshkosh, I got away with it by banning it by saying Wisconsin Public Radio doesn't allow it. We're an affiliate and we're adhering to that rule. You might want to put a rule in your underwriter statement and say we do not accept any kind of candidate advertising or issue ads, just as a rule of thumb.
Would it be fair to say that just like for political issues, just not issues but candidates, or as we come up on the next election cycle, just put a blanket thing out there that says absolutely not.
Absolutely, I would absolutely. I would. I used to have really nice hair. Put it that way. I don't like to worry, and it just that would just make me nervous all the time. You have enough trouble when candidates come to town, and you cover it as a news thing. That's okay. But if you do an interview with a candidate and make a news spot out of it, well, now you've triggered 399, and you gotta contact the others. You gotta put it in your political file. The money ain't worth it, as far as I'm concerned.
In our last aldermanic had one come to us, and I said, we're not doing political stuff. Oh, but I can write it to a certain way, and I said,
No,
no,
good for you.
no, thank you.
Good for you. Yeah. This also comes up a lot in community radio where someone on your air, a regular host, decides to run for office. Now you gotta, yeah, they're out. They gotta be out. I mean, even when Reagan was running for president, they had to stop showing those movies like Bedtime for Bonzo and stuff like that because it's unfair things. Yeah.
In Bonnet, Keith Heisler
Yeah.
got permission from the
Opposing candidates.
opposing candidate that said he could still be on the radio and run for.
Okay. Well, then you're covered.
So there is a way, but
there's
you
a way,
gotta,
but you
got to jump through some hoops if you want to run
Yeah.
for office.
And what if the Constitution Party candidate complains, or some of the Taxpayer Party candidate? You don't just get the one others. You know,
There
you
was
got.
a news story out there. It was a TV meteorologist, I forget what state, that was running for office, and the opposing candidates wouldn't agree to him having that extra airtime during the weather, so he had to, I don't know if he resigned or took a leave of absence, but had to be totally off the air until that election
Yeah.
was done. In that case, his candidates were okay.
No, it's a thorny problem. So, but you probably come up and sit down with your licensee. Say, okay, what are we going to do? What things don't we want here? And maybe adult services at Oshkosh, because most of the students are underage, we couldn't have bars as underwriters. That's the first thing students thought of. Well, I'll just go to the bar and no, a bar, a restaurant that has a liquor license is okay. A bar that sells food is not. So where's the line? So that kind of thing. But sit with your licensee because they own the station. Have them decide for you and give you that cover of what kind of groups you don't want or organizations you don't want. Pre-record the message. Gets rid of the risk of someone misreading it. Keep them short. The longer the message, the more apt you are to run afoul of the FCC. Most of the cases I've seen before the FCC where they fine stations is because the underwriter statements have gotten to be 45, 50, 60, 65 seconds long. And the longer you go, the more apt you are to run afoul of one of these kind of guidelines. Personally, I wish the FCC would put together a place you could email and say, I want to say this as an underwriting statement. And they could send it back and say, yes, you can. Then you put that in your file. Well, the FCC said I could say this. There's also there's a rule, nonprofits, you can say more for nonprofits than you can for for-profits. Don't even bother. Have everyone adhere to the same rules, because that for-profit underwriter, here's the nonprofit underwriter. Well, they could say this, why can't I? Well, no, just have everyone adhere to the same set of rules. It makes it so much easier. Watch out for syndicated programming that you might carry. I've been burned a couple times, not burned, but there were some iffy things. Does anyone carry 10 Show radio from Bayfield? It's on the public radio exchange. It's a free show. They'll send it. You can download it for free too. It's from Big Top Chautauqua in Bayfield, the big tent, the canvas tent show they have. Their underwriters, Leinenkugel Red Lager beer, which is fine. There's no problem with that. But the guy at the old host, Warren Nelson, he was singing at the beginning, sing the theme song. Support for this show provided by Leinenkugel Red Lager beer. That's my favorite beer, he said. I thought, oh. My eyes snapped back in my head. So I called up there. I told the producer, I said, he can't say that. Watch out. Some of you working in community radio might be doing shows in other languages. Watch out that the other languages adhere to the rules too. At Wisconsin Public Radio, we had an underwriter that was partly in Polish. The Plainfield Truck Stop Family Restaurant, offering Raymond's Biscuits, Charlene's Gravy, and Jim's Gumbo. They're all Domave. Domave is fine. Domave is the Polish word for homemade. That's a legitimate quantitative statement, Then they changed it to Howard says smaczny at the end. Well, now Howard saying something. That sounds like a testimonial. What is that? So I called the underwriting guy in Wausau and I said, what is smaczny? I don't speak Polish. Well, I better check, he said. So he checked and tasty. He can't say tasty. That's an opinion. That's a testimonial. So he had to go back to Domave, which is the Polish word for homemade. So this was interesting because I used that to explain underwriting to a woman I knew from Ukraine public broadcasting. I don't understand what I said. Well, we could say this, but not this. Oh, now I get it, she said. So that's kind of good. And then I included this business card. We did this at WRC the last few years I was there. We went to Vistaprint and got these business cards printed up. It's to take a big underwriting packet to a potential donor is a lot of headache because it's just too much stuff. Give them a card. We do this with WMUU here in Madison too. We put our logo on the front. We called them community business partners, which is kind of a nice way to call them, And then on the back, we kind of listed what our packages were. It didn't have any price, but Afternoon Jazz, our popular show, Titan Sports, the stream pre-roll. You can have a lot of your streaming software will allow you to do a pre-roll when people access it. That can be an ad because that's not over the air. Because that's on your stream. That's not affected by FCC rules. That can be an actual advertisement. So if someone really wants to do it, you could sell them your pre-roll if they want an ad. They can do the underwriting on your air, but the pre-roll on your stream can be a real advertisement, which is nice. Especially shows reasonable rates, no production costs, call today, etc. Now, what do you charge? My top underwriting rate at Oshkosh was $600 a semester for sports. You got 3 mentions in every game we did, and we got $600 for that. Our big underwriter, year in year out, was Oshkosh Tattoo and Good Girl Piercing. Excellent. That's a great underwriter. So here in Madison, we charge $12 a message, $12 per run. So we'll typically sell packages of 6 or 8 for something, and they run. And then you have to keep track of when they run because the funder needs an affidavit if they might want to require that. They'll usually trust you, but if you have an affidavit, that's a good thing too. So I will say without fear of contradiction, I am not an attorney. But if you have questions about underwriting and you want to reach out, my email address is here. I can give you maybe an opinion about an underwriting statement, but I will not go with you to your trial. Worry about this because the fines are severe and the FCC is reactive. They wait till you hear complaints. And the fine won't go to you. It'll go to your licensee. So whoever holds the license will get the fine. And that's a problem too. So, but can you make a nice living at this? No. Should you use what you see on public TV as an example? Also, no. They're really a lot of these places that are pushing the envelope have deep pockets to fight something like this. NPR and PBS, they're willing to kind of push the envelope in a way that you're probably wise not to. The other thing that I learned late in my career, I'd been on Wisconsin Public Radio for years doing underwriting on the air. And I went to a thing like this with a panel with some people from the Development Exchange, which is the big underwriting consultants. And they say you can't use slogans or service marks in an underwriter statement from the company. I said, really? I said, I've been doing one forever here in Madison. I said, Midwest Express Airlines, the best care in the air. It's a registered trademark. And they said, no, you can't say it because it says best, for one thing. That's no good. But it's also, you can't say it. It's like, wow, we were breaking the law left and right. And also, it's good to have things pre-recorded just because sometimes they're hard to say. You don't want to stumble over your underwriter because they are providing you, they give you some money. They deserve to have a nice, clean message without any stumbles. The one I struggled with, we had a bus tour company, and it had escorted motor coach tours, and that is the hardest phrase to say in a hurry on the air. Try it, escorted motor coach. It just doesn't work at all. So that's kind of what I have. I spent a lot more time with this in class on how to do this, but since we were doing it in real life, questions you have on this quickly. Things you've run into problems, yeah.
So what do you typically, I mean, this is open to everybody, what do you typically say to a company looking to underwrite when they ask, what are the best times to air this? Like, how can I ensure that this is going to...
You can certainly tell them that. If you have a sense of it from ratings, historically the most popular times are in the early morning drive time. I think that's changing now. I think afternoon drive is going to be as big, if not bigger, coming up soon, because all the stuff people used to turn the radio for in the morning, what's the weather going to be today? Who won the game last night? What happened overnight news? They're doing that on their phone before they get out of bed. They don't need radio for that. But in getting in the car on the way home, they, in theory, have not been on their phones all day. They might want to know the weather for tonight. Who's playing tonight? And so morning and afternoon drive historically are good. If they specifically want to underwrite a particular type of programming, you can give them that. Oh, I really like your world music. Oh, well, we'll get you the spots for that. But you can give them whatever you want. In commercial radio, there's a thing called run a schedule. And what they'll do is, it's the cheapest rate, but the software that puts it in the log will give it the best open slot. It's a good way. You can sometimes get a really good, valuable slot just because it has to be open. They'll automatically slot you in there. Anything after midnight isn't even rated anyway, so you don't want to give. So we had an overnight underwriter at WRST, though, when I was a student. Hardee's on Algoma Boulevard. And it was, support for WRST comes from Hardee's on the corner of Jackson and Algoma. And what does it say? Now open 24 hours. So you're up at 3 a.m. doing homework and say, yeah, curly fries. Yeah, curly fries. And that worked for them. They had a lot of people that heard that and came there, so that kind of thing. But yeah, you can give them the best time, whatever they want. I mean, there's no problem with that. You might run into things where a lot of people want the same one. Then you pre-record it and you record them so that one gets first and the other one gets second, and then the next time it plays, it's the reverse. So each person gets each underwriter gets the same amount of top billing, So that's one to go. Other questions, other problems you've had?
More of a comment than a question, and hope I heard about our approach. We dubbed in a bunch of old-time radio shows, and those have commercials in them. You kind of wrap the whole check for syndication. And then, okay, this is going to be a pain to edit all those out.
Yeah.
I did some research on that, and it appears historical commercials are okay to keep in a broadcast.
Except
tobacco.
Except tobacco, yes.
So I just kind of want to share that.
We did that here at Wisconsin Public Radio until last year. We carried on Saturday and Sunday night. We did 3 hours of old-time radio drama.
Some of those pulling up the-
That was actually fun.
Oh, we love that show.
Listen to all this classic radio
Yes.
stuff, and I'd be like, and then I'll also be like, oh man, we can't air that one.
Well, you can cut the ad, you can cut the commercial out,
Yeah.
but unless let's say Philip Morris presents, you can't do that. That show's out of tune then. But
Something for historical content is allowed.
it's a lot. Yeah, and Signal gasoline and Ipana toothpaste are not going to benefit from these ads. This brings up a good point though. There's a big question about whether or not you should have as an underwriter vape shops. And my personal advice is to shy away because it's tobacco adjacent, and the rules aren't really clear. There have been stations that have kind of run afoul of it recently, and my professional advice is to just say, sorry, you can't do it. And there you are. But old time radio is good, but you have to cut the cigarette ads out, and that's what we always did. We cut all the cigarette ads out. Beer is okay. Beer is fine. Beer is fine. Yes.
I remember one of the old ones.
Schlitz. Yes.
There you go. I'm like, oh man.
Yeah. I actually did a news story when the guy died who wrote the Hamm's beer jingle, and I put the beer jingle in the radio story. He got that because he'd come to Wisconsin, he'd seen a native powwow, and that's what gave him the idea for the drum, for the ad. So, but yeah, it's a thorny business. It gets you a little money for your licensee that maybe you can devote to gear. You can target it. At WRST, when we first started doing underwriting, it was targeted. It was earmarked just for sports travel because the only thing we underwrote was sports, was college sports. So we used that fund to just put toward mileage and things like that for away games. We did a trade with a record store in town who was letting us have new releases for on the air. That's how WRST had the very first on-air broadcast north of Chicago with the Sex Pistols. Very cool. Cutting edge. We were doing hip-hop, 84? That's really early for hip-hop. That's really early. So, Yes, it's coming up. Yeah. So that's, but yeah, we'd been doing underwriting at WRST. We didn't do it till about 80, 81. We started doing underwriting for cash. Trade we'd done a little earlier, but for cash underwriting, we started doing for sports in like 80 and 81. So.
Another question, I'm pretty sure I know the answer. Would you suggest we forbid underwriters from having their own radio show? For example, I have a real estate agent.
I know I was one of your contest judges this year.
Who
I would have him
constantly breaks the rules.
I would have that pre-recorded by someone else in the station. Make that the policy of the station that all the underwriters are pre-recorded by this person, a person that doesn't have a show, and then you're covered. But you have to institute that policy just going forward. That's just and you say, blame me. Say, oh, this guy from Wisconsin Public Radio came and said, here's a good rule. And they're following it at the community station here in Madison and his college station in Oshkosh. And here's a good way to avoid problems. Because you don't want problems. The fines are like $10,000, and then they also put in a consent decree where you have to spend like 3 years having some kind of a formalized program to train your staff about underwriting. You don't want that, and the city doesn't want that. And that's bad PR. You just don't want it. So
He'll say, because he goes live,
yes,
and he'll say, Sunbury Real Estate Show brought to you by the Baker Realty Group, blah, 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 and then he goes into his live show, and there's...
It's yeah.
very muddy.
You could have him
I want to get him on TV rather than on the radio.
then you're covered.
Yeah.
Yeah. Radio's fussy because it is over the air.
Mm-hmm.
And once you're in the over the air, like podcasting doesn't matter, streaming doesn't matter, cable TV doesn't matter, but when you start using the licensed airwaves, all kinds of things happen. It's just different. So, but yeah, that's that one. I would really, really urge that one to be pre-recorded by somebody else. And you could make it a billboard for the show. The Sun Prairie Real Estate Show brought to you by the Baker Realty Group. Address, phone number, and that's all you have. And that's fine. So that'd be good. So that's always a problem when you have someone who really wants to support you, and then you have to say no, and you just, I'm so sorry. Involved person. Yeah. Oh man, there's all kinds of Venn diagrams there. So, but I would say first of all get these recorded, but also sit down with your licensee, your board, and say this might be a problem going forward. Who do we not want as an underwriter? So we can have it ahead of time. So when they do show up, and they will, we want to be able to say no, thank you, but no. And then they can't go after you. They can't make a big fuss about it. Say, well, it's our policy. And we did that when we made our new ones here at WRST. We came up with, and we have a PEG channel too at Oshkosh. That where the rules don't apply. I mean, it's a PEG channel. It's not over the air. We made the rules the same there. So there were a lot of underwriters that were both for both radio and TV. They had to adhere to the more restrictive ones for radio on TV. Of course, we'll put a slide up with their logo. That's fine. But we couldn't do anything more on TV than we did on radio just because we were kind of co-located.
Quite often I will pull audio from TV shows that we have and air it on the radio.
Yeah.
So then it limits the amount of extra work I have to do.
That's right too. Yeah. Always sell that
Mm-hmm.
because people like to hear that. So, other questions? Anyone want? We got a few minutes left. Anyone want to talk about other LPFM things going on?
I've got a couple other things.
Sure. Go ahead.
There's no other underwriting.
I was not necessarily underwriting, but are you looking to update your list at some point? Or
It is up. It gets updated all the time.
Oh, does it?
If you want to send me something, I'll get it on the list. On the website. The website's run by Rice University, so I'm not actually in charge of the website.
Okay.
But I send them updates all the time. So if you have a show I say right at the top, if you have a show that should be on here, send me the information. Or if there's a show that's on here that shouldn't be anymore, it's gone, let me know that too. I've started this in 1996. So it's been it's been going a long time, and I think I've caught a lot of all the ones that are gone. I've managed to get rid of them. But if there's new ones, I'm always finding new ones I don't know about. For the
For the list.
For the list, it's scbi.org, and then go under programming. It's the College Broadcasters Incorporated runs it. Ask CBI, askcbi.org, and then go under the tab that says programming, and there's programming resources there, and the list is there.
Thank you.
Sure, you bet.
Cool. Thank you. You bet. Thank you. Just a couple other small things that I've seen come through the email list over the past couple months, and put them on here for discussion today. I think, don't quote me, but I think this one came from Jeff about streaming music and kind of the rules on how many artists in a row and all that sort of stuff. So I just brought some information about music licensing for streams and the Copyright Act for streaming music. And their rules are no more than 3 different songs from the same album with no more than 2 songs transmit consecutively, no more than 4 different songs by the same artist or compilation. So all that stuff's in here, and I don't 100% sure, but I think it was Jeff that had that in the email thread. And then I found a article on the Broadcast Law blog, which is a really good website about, it's a little outdated, or I don't know if the content's so much outdated, but it's an older article that talks about some of this. So don't need to go over in here, but I just thought I'd bring it as a reference. And
Yeah, the DMCA is, a lot of people want to follow that one. And we carried it, Wisconsin Public Radio, we carried it, when that Bob Dylan film came out, that Martin Scorsese did, there was a companion radio special of Dylan music that violated these rules. We got a waiver from Sony. Because they distributed it. They said, we will give you a waiver, you can stream this show. And do what you want. If you want to do it, break those rules, just turn the stream on. People don't want to do that. We had an all Ramones show at Oshkosh for a while, and they said, well, you have to turn the stream off. Well, never mind. You know, so
another topic, I think it was from Jake, about, I think you guys had a council meeting or something where someone had some improper content, and I think he kind of had going in that email group, what are other stations doing for that? And we've, at least for us, we've got no formal system in place, no delays or anything, and I think if something like that happened for us, we'd cut it off the air as soon as we could and then wait for it to calm down before resuming the broadcast. But I don't know if anyone else has policies in place or has dealt with that or any technology for that, or if everyone's kind of in the same boat. But I thought it would be a good discussion topic.
Well, with us, we record a weekly lecture series at our UW Clare County. And there was a topic that came up, a poetry thing a couple months ago, where the person dropped about 3 F-bombs in the course of about 45 seconds. And I said, well, that's exciting. So, and it aired live on TV, so there wasn't much I could do about that. But then we also replay the audio on radio, and of course, if we play that on the radio, that could potentially be a big headache for a lot of people. And so, normally, of course, with our stuff, we don't edit. What you see is what you get. But in that case, I went to the person and I said, we can't do this. And I cut it out, and they didn't have, they pushed back a little bit on it, but that's an integral part. I said, not on my radio station, it's not. But thanks. So.
And there's also the complexity if it's a government meeting too, and that happens. You're really not supposed to alter the content of that meeting, but you also
Right.
Was that school board meeting where the F-bomb dropped? Was that live on the radio?
I think so.
Yeah. So it's one of those. It got edited out for the rebroadcast, but then there's the question: can you really edit that meeting? But you also can't put that on the radio. And
That's what we were struggling with. It was the same thing. A public commentator came up and spoke and said all kinds of things, and there's no dump button, so it just went out on the air, and we just silenced it on the video replay. But it's just kind of a challenge. A lot of things going on there.
I don't, in my opinion, and you take that for what it's worth, but I don't think that it's completely unreasonable, even in a government meeting, if somebody starts dropping S this and F that, and whatever. As long as it's like, what is it, the seven deadly words or
Oh, you
whatever.
can't go by that. You can't go by that. There's a million words you'll get in trouble there.
Well, sure, but I think it, and maybe I'm too conservative for that, but I don't think it's unreasonable to take those out of a government meeting because it's not necessarily altering the general content of that meeting. If it's, I think that it would be very different if we were taking out like a whole session of, somebody that we or somebody on council or the mayor or whatever disagreed with and wiped out their entire public comment, then we'd have a much bigger problem in our hands. But if we just took out one or two words,
You still get the gist that.
you get the
guy
gist that they
the
said
person
something
that said
that
it is angry at the moment.
that destroyed public decorum. But at the same time, you're not altering, I don't think, the overarching meaning of
The intent.
of what the meeting was all about.
There was a case in Seattle, KRAV, the community station in Seattle, had a poet on. And they got in, there was actually a hearing before the FCC because it was a citizen complaint. And the poet had lots of obscene language in it. And what the station, how they attracted it was they said as soon as they heard it, they turned it on. And that gave them the cover. They said, well, we didn't know we were going to do this. So we turned it off and put other programming on. And I think I don't think the FCC would come after you too badly. I think you would say we're being responsible here. We're carrying a live event. We did the best we could with what we had. I don't think they're good. They have bigger fish to fry.
I had yesterday on the Good News Event show, I had a poet, and he's done 3 books, and a lot of it is has vulgar language in it.
Yeah.
Well, I had him read a poem that didn't have any vulgar language in it, to get. But I said, these books are not for young people. They're rated PG, 13, and maybe R in some cases. And he had no problem.
Yeah.
But he understood. I can't have you read this.
Yeah.
Read this one.
It's almost to the point. WRC was one of the first stations ever to do city council meetings. I think we were actually the first one in the state. They claim that anyway. But I think it's perfectly reasonable to have is this being recorded for broadcast? To have someone who's running the meeting say that. By the way, if you're going to make public comments, this meeting is being recorded for broadcast. We cannot allow profanity and obscenity. So please, contain that urge kind of thing. And I think that'd be perfect. It might calm things down. Well, if I can't say this, I'm going to leave. It could actually ameliorate it a little bit. Would be nice. So, I used to give the lecture, and Wayne's seen it, the obscenity lecture. The obscenity lecture.
Oh yeah.
I take the blackboard, I draw a line down the middle. I say, okay, here's the legal stuff. Here's the illegal stuff. Here's the line. Here's where we are way, way over here from that line. We want to be so very, very careful. So, I have a question. Are you guys paying GMR? No. Gold News Press, you're not?
So they have yet to come after any LPFMs. They haven't sent this. I deal with some commercial stations and some non-coms, and the commercial stations have all been harassed by them,
Yes.
and most of them are starting to pay that. Kind of the consensus I've saw out there on the non-coms and the LPFMs, just ignore them until they knock on your door and then pay. For the city's music licensing for in our buildings and parks and all that, when we set that all up, I just went to them right away for that. But I'm not going to volunteer more money for my budget for the LPFM until they come and say, hey, we want that.
Okay.
I'm not saying that's right or wrong, that's just our approach.
Okay, well, I'm curious. I don't know what the industry is doing. I know what college radio is doing, but I didn't know what LPFM.
What's college stance on that?
College is kind of telling people to start to pay now.
Mm.
Because you're making your university look bad kind of thing too. They don't want that.
But I will say with GMR's rates, they are very expensive compared to the other three for
Are
what
they
it
really?
covers. Yeah, we're paying for the city music licensing for the facilities, I want to say we're paying the other three to 400 a year. GMR wanted, I think, 850. Yeah.
But GMR is trying to get in the game with the non-commercial radio. They're trying to offer for $1.
Okay.
And
Well,
the legal people at college broadcasters were saying, don't pay it even if it's just $1. Don't let them in the tent kind of thing. And so, okay, well that's good to know. I'll tell my operations director in Scotland not to worry about it.
that was kind of the broadcast industry stances. The music licensing consortium that's supposed to represent commercial radio wanted to negotiate with them and was kind of telling commercial stations, wait for us to work things out, and that wasn't going well. And some owners just said, we're not paying it. Some just, we're going to pay it so we don't get in trouble. And then they send threatening letters.
Or you just drop their catalog.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. You don't get to play the Eagles anymore.
So at least our stance is I'm not paying it for the radio station until they send me something telling me we need to, because they've never told us we need it to. So.
Good to know. I learned something.
So we're
It's a good day.
past our wrap up time.
Yeah.
Great job.
But round of applause to Randall.
Oh,
for-
round of applause for Ashley. Thank you for coming.
I had one more thing on here, and if anyone's interested, I'll stay in here a couple of minutes. Is anyone podcasting or interested in doing podcast stuff?
I am.
Well, we're doing it already. I was just going to say I'm not into podcasting at all, but we want to start getting our content in that site. And if anyone wants to, I'll throw it up quick. Do a demo of Podbean.com, which is the service we're using. If anyone wants me to demo that, raise your hand, or if not, that's okay. Take 30 seconds. But there are all the questions. How do you get on all the different apps, and how hard is it to do, and all that stuff. And we found Podbean. I think it's $120 a year. And it's super easy. So when you sign up for it, it guides you on how to get into all the different apps. Some are really easy. You click a button and they do it automatically. Some, like Apple and Amazon, you have to create like a developer account and do a little back-end work. But they have really good instructions to walk you through the process. It's all based on RSS feeds. So as soon as you publish something, it'll show up momentarily on all those apps.
It's very user-friendly.
And we found you can schedule stuff to show up at a certain time on there. You can automatically push it to Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff. So I'll just do a really quick demo, but it's podbean.com. Price was right, 120-ish a year.
Just a reminder, everybody, there's QR codes on the table to fill out feedback forms. If you could do that, that'd be great.
Oops, I can't remember the passwords. So yeah, to add, so you create your account, and once you go into episodes, and you'd hit new episode, upload your file. I'm not going to do one, I'll just go into an existing one. So you upload your file, and then it'll bring you to a screen like this, shows the file you're using. You give it a title, give it a description. And basically you can either publish it or schedule it. So in this case, we've got this one scheduled to go out later today. So that works nice if, Wayne cuts up the segments in Good News Wapaka. Well, we don't want to upload 5 segments all at once. We spread it out over a couple days, but he does all the work in a couple minutes. As far as the distribution, this was the big thing. I'm not a podcaster, but I knew we needed to at least get our content into this space to reach more people, and we've been getting some okay numbers on here. But they give you a public website on the Podbean service. We just did wapaka.podbean.com, so it shows our recent episodes, but then it shows all the apps we're on. So they integrate with all the big ones: Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, TuneIn, iHeart. There's no extra cost beyond the fee for this service to get on any of those, but they've got a page in here for distribution where you can set up entering with social media, embeddable players you can put on your website. I'm not sure, I think it can even automatically post on a WordPress website, but for all the different apps they walk you through, they've got them all listed on here. And when you create your account, you just go through either all of them or just the ones you're interested in, and you just click on it, and it either tells you what you need to do, or it just has a button, do you want us to set this up? But I think Apple and Amazon were the two that you had to do a little more, getting an Apple developer account and all that stuff. A lot of them was just you click a button, it does it, and then it gives you the link to what that is, and then people find it on apps. But when you post the stuff, it's instant. I'm not saying Podbean's the best service out there. We were looking for something. I found this that checked all the boxes, and we've been very happy with it. The staff's had no issue using it at all. It's simple. So I just wanted to show that quick for those of you maybe thinking about getting into this space. This is a good product and works well.
The price is right.
Yeah.
And you say it probably is compatible with WordPress.
I think I saw something on there where you could get it to post on there. I thought there was something in here somewhere on that. We didn't set that one.
Is there a limit to how much space you have to upload programs?
So it depends what plan you purchase. The free plan is very limiting. Like you can only upload 3 things a day and only have so many files on there. We paid, I think, for the low tier plan, and for what our needs were, it was going to meet that, and then they have some higher plans. But yesterday we had 13 people listen to content on here, 70 in the past week. So not massive numbers, but we've reached 70 more ears than we would have if we weren't on this platform. We're not doing at this time any unique content. It's just all of our content from radio that makes sense goes on here. So we're reaching people who maybe aren't listening to the radio or aren't listening at the right time or want the convenience on their phone in the morning or whatever. But yeah, that's the quick overview. It's pretty simple. We've been happy. So for those of you maybe thinking about podcasting who are kind of like me, like I don't know, this works well.
Mostly use it for our local news.
Anyone's got any questions? I can try and show it quick, but otherwise that's
We just signed up for an account with Podbean,
nice.
so we're getting it set up.
It's easy. That's the nice part.
You'll like it.
Yeah.